Anybody need to cough, belch, fart, whatever you got to do? Now is the time.
Low voice, I was in the crib when my balls dropped. Earthquake when they hit, bro, they split rocks. Now my girl's hotter than that summer asphalt. If she turn me down, God knows that it's her loss.
All right, motherfucker, we were live, we're recording. I hit the button. It's on.
The button's been pressed.
The button has been pressed. Everybody, welcome to Shit Happens When You Party Naked. Thank you guys all for listening to the show. I'm joined by my wife, as usual. Hi, wife.
Hi, hubby.
What's going on, baby?
Not much. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You want me to sing you a song today?
No.
Okay. I won't sing you a song today. Instead, I will introduce our real guest, Scotty McAlarney, a.k.a. Scotty Mac, a.k.a. Scotty Macros. You'll find out about that nickname later, a.k.a. Scotty Mac Truck Cock. And I'll find out about that nickname a little bit later in my booty. And what's up, Scotty? What's going on, man?
What's happening, Jason? Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, I'm glad you could join us finally. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Happy to have you on. We haven't done a whole lot of, bodybuilding chat on this show in the past, and I'm glad to have a bodybuilder on the show so that we can do a little talking about the bodybuilding. But you have an interesting personal history as well, so I'm really looking forward to getting into some of that.
Absolutely. I'm an open book, so ask away and I'll share away myself.
Indeed. Well, I suppose we just get started at the beginning, you know what I mean? Scotty Mac came out of his mother's vagina, and that's pretty cool. We're all happy that event occurred. Probably some sex between your mom and dad preceded that by about 9 months or so. I don't know if you were born premature or what, but
there has been a question of immaculate conception in my case, but that remains undetermined.
Yeah. Without getting too off topic, my general thought about immaculate conception is that it's mostly like, hey, I got drunk, some shit went down. I'm pregnant, but I'm just gonna tell everybody like I woke up pregnant. I feel like Bill Cosby could have done that shit. Like somebody just wakes up pregnant after hanging out with Bill Cosby. You know what I'm saying?
Has anyone ever consented to immaculate conception?
You know what? I'm trying to remember how it went in the Christian, I know that the Archangel Gabriel came down and, visited Mary. I don't know if that was, a prelude, hey, you gonna get knocked up, or, hey, you already knocked up with the Son of God. I don't know if that's a thing or not. I can't remember my Sunday school teachings.
At this point, anyway, statute of limitations is passed, so we'll leave it there.
Indeed. So, You are currently a bodybuilder. Let's talk about kind of where you are now, what's going on with you right now, and then we'll back it up and we'll learn about how you got there.
Sounds like a plan.
So you're a bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder in the NPC. That's actually how we met. We met at the first NPC show that I competed at here in New England.
Yes, we did.
Where the love started.
That is where the love started.
That's where the love story began.
How long have you been competing in the NPC, Scotty?
So my first competition in the NPC was 4 years ago. So that was the NPC New England Championships in Boston.
What year was that?
What was that, 2015, is that right? Or
so was that the first show? Was that your first show that I met you at?
2014.
If I do the math, 4 years ago, I believe was 2014.
Yeah, and I believe that is the New England Championship that I competed in. I think that was my first show up here.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I actually met you at your first show.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That was. Now that you mention it.
That's crazy. That's cool.
It's even cuter.
It is almost cuter.
Aww.
So that was my first show in New England.
So maybe he was nervous and you look like a nice guy and wanted to cuddle maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
he looked like somebody who would hold me and comfort me in my time of need.
He'd be the big spoon.
And he hasn't failed me since.
I don't mind being a big spoon. So you've been competing pretty much straight since then. I mean, I don't think you've had any substantial time off. You haven't had any prolonged off season since then. You're just kind of the normal length for an off season to make improvements and get bigger, right?
Well, one thing I would point out is myself and in my own training, I've taken a year off between each show. So a lot of people do try to compete. Around here in New England, we have generally the fall season. We have the spring season. Few shows scattered on the beginning and end portions of those. a lot of people will end up doing a show and then 6 months later try to hop in another one. I prefer to take a little more time, so I've done fall season shows each year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think 6 months is the right gap between shows. I think if you're going to compete in multiple shows in a season, then get them back to back so that you can maintain your condition through the shows. Hit a few shows that are within maybe a month or 6 weeks or something of each other, and then when it is time for an off season, take an off season. Really give yourself time to A, recover from that contest prep, and then B, give yourself time to make improvements as well, because that doesn't happen overnight. What do you think about that?
Those right two are the exact points I always go to. Is your body needs to recover. Contest prep and competing is something that does put the body through some stress, and you want to give yourself time to recover from that. Let your body really get back to good health. And this is bodybuilding. We're trying to build, and during the time that you're preparing for a contest, we're not doing much building. We're really trying to trim the body fat off. So we need that season. We need that off season, as people call it. I like to tell my clients it's improvement season, because we're not taking any time off here. We're keeping the focus, working toward goals.
I think that's actually probably a great way to phrase it versus off season. I think the term off season is so widely used in the bodybuilding community, the competitive bodybuilding community, I should say. But the off season term is so frequently used. But you have a good point. You're not taking time off. You work very hard in the off season. You really have to train very hard. But you have an opportunity to. You have an opportunity to increase your calories, to have a surplus, and then put that food to good use and do some good training. So I like that you call it the improvement season instead of the off season. That's a better way to frame it.
And it helps mentally too, because after a show, a lot of people, a lot of competitors tend to go through a bit of a tough time mentally, even depression at times, when they've been working toward this one goal for so long, and then now that the show's passed, all of a sudden they have nothing they're working toward. They feel lost.
Yeah.
And especially then when you have the freedom to eat what you want to eat, and you've been restricted for a while with that diet, very easy to mentally lose your way, and it can be a scary situation for some. So focusing on improvements, setting goals becomes important.
Yeah, actually, that was something that I did want to ask you about as well. Speaking of the bodybuilding, is that bodybuilders will often binge eat after a show, like you mentioned. In fact, I remember prior to my shows, like usually the Friday before the show, maybe the Thursday before the show's on a Saturday, so this is like 24 to 48 hours before the show, I would go to a grocery store and I would fill the cart with all the bullshit that I was craving because I hadn't been eating it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I was fucking muffins, ice cream, kids cereal, Oreos,
oatmeal cream
everything.
pies.
Oh, yeah, Little Debbie all over the place. Holy shit. And I've got pictures of my friends, of myself that we took of just a table covered with Dorito bags and Pop-Tarts and just shit. Entenmann's donuts and stuff just waiting to go. And it's the Sunday after the show, you'd be ripping into this shit. And I would bloat myself out sometimes. I really the first couple times learned my lesson, and in later shows, have a little bit, but dial it back. But do you feel I feel like maybe now that I'm looking back at my bodybuilding career that maybe that wasn't the healthiest mentality? Do you feel like maybe the bodybuilders and the female fitness competitors too, they're really notorious about doing this. Do you feel like that's a good thing, a good habit, a good mentality to have?
It's really not. But we all do. We all like to have our treats after our diet. We all like to go and enjoy ourselves and binge a little, if you will.
I'll tell you, I don't trust a person who doesn't like shitty food. When someone tells me they don't like pizza, they don't like cheeseburgers with bacon on them.
Full of shit.
I think you are fucking lying to me. I work in dietetics. I work with dietitians. I have for 12 years worked with registered dietitians. And look, your average registered dietitian is a 26-year-old chick. She just graduated college, and she's like, I don't like pizza. I like kale. I'm like, fuck you, bitch. Look, maybe you don't eat as much pizza because, you're trying to stay fit and you know what kind of impact it has on you, and you eat more kale than pizza, but don't fucking lie to me and tell me you don't like pizza.
No, the cauliflower crust tastes better.
Yeah, fuck you. You know you like that fucking pizza. You tell me you don't like pizza, you're full of shit.
I will say, before my time with Jason, I never ate pizza with like meat, and I never ate bacon. I didn't eat ice cream. I never ate chips. I didn't have mayonnaise in my house. And now I do enjoy those kind of things.
First of all, I want to say,
just saying,
you're welcome. You're welcome. B, I am the devil. I am the devil. So
dressed up in bacon.
Yeah, I am the devil, and I will
cleverly disguised as
cleverly,
cake.
yes.
Yep, I get people fat, and that's what I do. That's how I roll.
And now I find it interesting. Now that I've started eating those kind of foods, I enjoy those foods, and it would probably be a little more difficult to stop. So thank you, honey.
You're very welcome. And I like I said, if you were to tell me I don't like pizza, I would just say you're full of fucking shit. It's okay to eat kale. It's okay to like kale. I enjoy kale.
I like kale.
But I think that if you're going to tell me that you dislike unhealthy food, I think you're lying to yourself, and I think you're bullshitting me. So fuck that. But so I agree with you, Scotty, in that we do all enjoy. I mean, I fucking love donuts. I've only had them once this year. I've been a pretty good boy this year, but
hey, way to go!
I know I've been very well behaved with the sweets this year, and my A1C. Like, we're celebrating my A1C. I'm a type 1 diabetic, everybody listening, if you didn't know that. I am a type 1 diabetic, and I do get my A1C checked very regularly with my endocrinologist, and I'm way down. I'm like 20. It's a 20% reduction, a 20% improvement in my A1C.
There we go.
And that's thanks to the Dexcom I wear.
It's weird what happens when you stop eating bullshit.
It is. It actually, it's proof.
And
that
when you have a good influence from your wife, versus the bad influence you put on her.
Yeah, it's
Mr.
balanced.
Bacon Devil.
Yeah, she's the yin to my yang. She's the kale to my bacon. I mean, it's we've achieved a better balance, I think, this year. But as I was saying, we all like, even non-bodybuilders enjoy those treats.
Well, and look physiologically at what happens in your body when you take these things in. We're talking about the release of chemicals in the brain that make you feel good. That's what sugar intake does. That's
why they call it comfort food.
Precisely. And that's where, unfortunately, issues do come in. To bring it back to the health question, is this a healthy way to be? Is it not? If we're restricting our diet, and then when you do have that huge sugar rush and suddenly your serotonin shoots through the roof and you have this true high from these foods that you haven't had in so long, it can be dangerous. And especially for people who, if your mentality is an addictive one, if you have that abnormal reaction and you have that serotonin spike up and you feel good, that's when it can be an issue. And that's where, to touch back on that question there, that's where we want to really keep an eye out as far as health and mental health as well.
Yeah, I think it is a big thing mentally for me is that my concern is the mentality of the thing. Obviously, the physiology of the thing is concerning as well because of the cascade of events that occur subsequent to consuming that type of food that's very high. Mostly the very high refined carbohydrate, added sugars, things like high fructose corn syrup, but also the combination of starches and fats that you find in things like pizza and the cheeseburger I mentioned because it has a bun on it, and the French fries that are deep fried in oil but filled with starch. So I feel like, there's the physiological response to that, but then what concerns me most is the mental, like what does that say about a person's brain? And I think it really drives home the fact for me that bodybuilders operate in these extremes. It's not. I mean, people say it's a lifestyle. It is indeed a lifestyle. It's almost more than that too. It's almost like it's an obsession. You don't do it kind of as a hobby. You don't meet a lot of people at bodybuilding shows who are like, sometimes I bodybuild. It's very, very serious thing for people, and it's extreme. The body weight, you're getting up to, I was 260 pounds at one point, right? So, I mean, the body weight is extreme. The amount of weight that you lift in the gym is extreme. You're not going in there and doing like a little Planet Fitness workout with a little, I'll do some push-ups and I'll do the ropes. You're like, I'm going to lift as much weight as I can until a tendon snaps, basically.
You're pushing every aspect really to the extreme, as you're saying.
Indeed.
Every aspect.
So, I mean, like, is that... I guess that maybe those post-contest binges kind of come with the territory. It's part of living everything to the extreme. I mean, everything.
Absolutely. Yep. And a lot of people are just fine with, you have that day after the show or the night of the show. Yeah. You go extreme and you have, you fill yourself up way too much. and then you're good after the fact. One of the things I know we're touching on today also is recovery. I myself am a recovered addict.
I'm glad you brought that up first. I was wondering, like, how I want to talk about addiction. It's a really important topic to me, and it's a really fascinating topic to me. And I did want to discuss your past as well as
Absolutely.
your current, and I wanted to broach that, but I was like, how the fuck am I going to bring
Where's
that
the
up?
segue?
Like, yeah, how do I smoothly segue into that shit? I mean, that's kind of a heavy topic to get into.
Yeah,
So,
and this for me is because this hits the nail on the head for me, because we're talking about an abnormal reaction here, and so if you're looking at addiction and you're looking in, so I am part of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I abstain from the use of any drugs or alcohol. And in that program, we look at what is addiction and what is the issue at hand here. And it's an abnormal, well, we refer to it as having an allergy. Right, an allergy to the substance we put in our body. We have an abnormal response.
That's a good analogy, I think, because if you think about the immune response to an allergy and the way that those work, your body misrecognizes a protein and responds in a way that is not physiologically normal for the majority of people. But
precisely, you have most people who have a beer or a drink or whatever the case may be, go out for a night, have a little party, and they can put it down after the fact.
Yeah.
An abnormal reaction is the person who can't.
Yeah.
And so that for me is something that I've done a lot of work in my life on, and it plays right into this though too, because when you have that binge, when you have that serotonin spike, it feels good and it changes the way your body feels and is working. And as an addict, we can have that same abnormal response to that same spike in serotonin, just like a drug.
Do you feel like that maybe there are addictions that are not drug related that are still valid addictions?
100%.
So you think food addiction is definitely a thing?
I absolutely think so. I would frankly say I know so. We see precisely what we talk about in addiction, alcoholism, in literature and studies, and in the program. We see that same abnormal response to any type of stimulus in the world, be it food, be it gambling, be it sex. These addictions are real things. Despite not being a chemical, it still is a chemical reaction happening in the brain.
Yeah, they still talk about, with regard to nutrition, they talk about pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics of food stuff. Like you eat foods, and people don't always think this way, but even the good, whole, natural foods that you eat are comprised of chemicals, and those chemicals are then processed and absorbed by your body depending on what exactly is in there, what their makeup is specifically. And there is a physiological response to food. And I know that studies of food addiction have focused a lot on the neurological response to certain foods, like you said, the dopamine, serotonin. How are these receptors affected? What areas of the brain are active in the wake of consuming certain foods and certain types of foods, focusing a lot on sugars and
of course
stuff like that.
And they show the same parts of the brain that are lighting
Activated.
up from and activated precisely from cocaine use are activated from high sugar intake. And and then you wonder.
What that brings up for me is that nobody has to do cocaine, right? I mean, nobody has to do cocaine. You can live a long life, and I'm sure many people have throughout history lived long and productive lives very healthfully without ever consuming cocaine. But you don't live very long, and you're not very healthy if you don't consume food. So with regard to addiction, typically, and you'll back this up for me, I'm sure, the typical treatment for addiction, I yell at her so much. So much. I'm going to wait till they leave to beat you, though.
So we missed the show. Are you serious?
Anyway, no,
Don't let him see it.
Scotty's going to join in, man. He's going to hold you back while I work the ribs, Yeah, so the typical treatment for addiction involves abstinence from the substances. If you're an addict and you're going to NA meetings, they're not going to say, well, just have a little bit of cocaine, just the amount that you need. But I feel like
just
with
the
food,
magical amount.
Yeah, just there's a right amount, right? There's not too much, but with food there is like a right amount. You need to eat some food, and obviously we can focus on abstention from certain foods, like, eat less of the pizzas and the cheeseburgers, eat less of the donuts, drink less of the soda. But regardless, that stuff is everywhere. I mean, you don't go into a Burger King and see a cocaine fountain, but you do see a soda fountain when you go into a Burger King. So how do you feel like that maybe affects the comparison of food addiction with like a narcotics addiction?
Great question. It's scary, frankly, and one of the biggest issues to me is really the lack of education and knowledge on this, because walking into a Burger King, a huge majority of people, they know they're not walking in and eating a handful of broccoli. You're not going into Burger King getting a great healthy meal, but still the wide majority really don't understand what that food or that soda is doing to their body. And they're indulging in it without really the knowledge of what they're creating and what they're doing, the addiction that they're creating. And then, of course, the big thing for me, me, I love kids, watching children who are subjected to the same. And a lot of times the parents don't quite realize. You know?
I don't think there are many parents out there. I think the vast majority of parents would never do any harm to their kids. That's the top priority for 99.9% of parents out there, is like, make sure your kid is safe and sound and never do anything that's going to put them in harm's way. But I think you're 100% right that parents don't consider the type of harm that might befall their child based on what they're feeding the kid and how that affects them over time. Like, okay, an Oreo is fine, but feeding the kid fast food, I always feel bad for the kids because they don't have a source of income. They don't have the ability to drive. They have to eat what the parent feeds them. And if the parent feeds them poorly and are making too many indulgent food choices, then you do have the childhood obesity that you see, and that's almost out of their hands.
Well, and even worse than that is what it's setting up for the future for these kids.
Exactly.
You grow up on that, you're not getting away from it easily.
There's a high correlation between if you're obese as a kid, you're so much more, I don't know what the percentage is, but you're at such a high risk for being obese as an adult. Like, it's huge. It's huge.
Think the research shows that if you've ever been obese, it's very, very difficult to reverse that condition permanently. I mean, people lose weight, but then they gain weight again.
Well, and that's where my history comes from. That's when I first started getting into health or working out at all. I was the chunky kid in my family growing up.
Damn, you were the chunky kid.
I was.
That was my guess.
Chunky
I mean,
Scotty.
Looking at him, I'm like, I bet you were fat when you were younger.
Think? Because
totally.
seriously, it's hard. Jeez. I'll post a pic on Instagram of me and Scotty. We took we snapped a few pics prior to recording this. So I'll post some pics so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. But the guy's like fucking, I gave him a hug when he got here. I'm like, Jesus Christ. He's carved out of marble. I mean, he's harder than my dick. This guy is harder than my dick on 30 mgs of Cialis.
When you're not looking at me.
Yeah. I mean, even on 30 mgs of Cialis, you're harder than my dick. I'm just saying. And that's Cialis. Let me tell you something.
Oh, my goodness.
That's Cialis. I took a Cialis one time. I'm telling you. No, I mean, I've taken it more than one time. But once I took Cialis, and I'm like spotting my homeboy. You know, Cialis is like a long...
You were spotting your...
Hold on. I'm going to get there. So,
Cialis,
is this going? I want to introduce...
You got to be ready for these situations.
No, you do have to be ready. The fact is, Cialis is a longer release. You get the effects of Cialis for a longer duration than maybe some of your other penis pills. So the Cialis, like, it's in you for a little bit, right? I mean, it's not like
24, 36 hours, something like that.
It's not in you that long. It's not in you that long. I mean, 60, 90 seconds. But it's in me for like, I
was going to give you 3 minutes.
Oh, come on, man. You're too generous. I love you. But it's in me for like, I don't know, it's a good 24, 36 hour half-life on this stuff. You're supposed to only take it once a day, but I'm telling you, this shit works because I'm like spotting homeboy at the gym as he's doing like the bench press, and I'm standing right there. If that fucking shit rubbed me any closer, I mean, I'm like, ooh, I'm ready to go. Like I had to go to tug one out in the locker room. I'm telling you what.
God forbid he hits a PR, you're coming right on there.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, dude, I hope you don't have too many more reps in you because this thing keeps brushing me, and I'm about
Here
to
comes
lose
the
it.
confetti.
I'm buying. Boom! 10 reps. This shit's just raining down on me.
Protein shake.
Yeah, boom protein. That is like literally boom protein everywhere. How do you feel about the food addiction topic versus real addiction? Do you feel good on that topic? Have we beaten that dead horse, or do you want to? Is there any thought you want to circle back to that?
You know, one thing that I just would touch on real quick with that. One of my clients who it's funny, as we were talking here, I just got the text okay from him to share a little about him. One of my clients, he actually just competed and placed first place in his novice class.
Fantastic. Congratulations, client, dude. What's his, you can give his first name or something.
Yeah, this is my client, Casey.
Casey, okay.
Done amazingly well.
Way to go, Casey, man. Good job, dude.
Absolutely. Proud of this guy. He's incredible. But he actually is also in recovery. He and I share that. We also both have that reaction with food, though. You know, I have to be very careful with myself. If I'm having a cheat meal or if my girlfriend Jen and I are deciding to have a night out.
Yeah, a nice little date night. We enjoy date nights, too, me and my wife.
You got to do it. Got to live a little. But I need to order the amount that I'm going to eat, and I eat that amount, and I enjoy it. And then I need to make sure that I watch myself because I have an abnormal reaction. If I have food that tastes good and makes me feel good, I want to feel better. And so Casey and I have been working a lot on he's had issues with binging.
Yeah. So it's like if some is good, then more is better, right? I think that's a very common mentality with regard to both bodybuilders in those extremes of eating and dieting and eating and dieting. And we talked about weight loss and weight regain. And I think we lose 20, 30. I know people who lose 50 and 60 pounds for a bodybuilding show and then put that shit right back on
almost immediately.
Yeah, within a month. I mean, they'll the type of like weight changes and stuff like that, the weight fluctuations is insane. And
you were saying too, the girls can be even worse sometimes.
The girls are just as bad as the dudes, if not worse, because they will have so much bullshit food lined up afterward.
What I would touch on with that, just to as far as anybody listening who does have any of these issues going on, biggest piece of advice from me, and this is just, bottom of my heart, and then we'll get to some lighthearted stuff after this. Find someone to talk to about it. Find someone who has the same issues and who has worked through them. If you have questions about it, feel free to contact me, Scotty Mac 710 on Instagram. Shoot me a message. Honestly, these things are not something that we can deal with on our own. If you have the same type of issues that Casey, myself, or any of the other many people I know who deal with it have, you need to find a way to recover from these issues.
You're talking drugs or binge eating, right?
I am indeed, yeah. Any type of addiction that you're dealing with, find someone who knows the answer. Get yourself into some sort of a 12-step recovery program, or at least just some way to be working toward a way to fix these issues.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Actually, that raises a good point. It's a good time for me to ask this question.
Well said.
One of the questions I did have for you was, how can you be a good supportive friend or family member to someone who is dealing with addiction, whether they are in recovery or not yet? Is there a way? What's your recommendation for maybe people are listening to this who are in that spot in terms of addiction, but maybe there are people who are listening to this who say, oh, wow, that reminds me of my cousin or my uncle or my own son or my own daughter. Yep. What advice would you give the family member that just wants the best and wants to be as helpful as possible? How do we support people who are either in the throes of addiction or in the recovery process?
That is such a good question. And tough part of that is it can be a very case-by-case scenario. Sometimes there are certain ways you need to help, and other times you need to be strong enough to not.
What helped you?
So I was, toward the end of my using, personally, I had gotten to the point where I was injecting heroin, I was injecting cocaine. I was literally waiting to die any day.
God damn. Oh,
And
God damn.
Those people
Shit.
who know me now for who I am, it surprises the hell out of them, but I still remember that like it was yesterday because I try to keep that really fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's what I can go back to if I decide to take that step and slip up again. So,
Yeah. So you need that vulnerability to remind you, like, hey, man, like, I'm not invincible. I have to keep my vulnerabilities at the forefront of my mind.
absolutely, I'm still an addict. Despite the fact that I am not using, I'm not an active addict, I'm not putting anything in my body that changes the way my body works. If I do, my body will react in that abnormal way. All the same.
How long did you use for?
On and off, let's see, 8 years or so.
Wow.
But it's a disease of progression. It wasn't something that I didn't start off with heroin. And very luckily, I actually
Who does,
had a
right?
short-
Some people might though.
Who just goes,
know?
if you go right to heroin, I do want to hear from you. I'm being a little flippant, but jason.almy at teamalmy.com. If you went straight to heroin, if you skipped over booze and weed, I want to hear from you.
Very rare, but I have known a couple actually. I may see if they want to talk to you about it. To answer your initial question, as far as what did stop me, what actually my family did, at the end there, my life was so hopeless. I had no view of a way out. I was lying to everyone in my life, trying to pull the wool over their eyes. The very, very end for me was when my father actually told me that my mother and my sister were going to say goodbye, and then they were done with me. He was turning off my phone. They were cutting me off because I was dragging them all through hell, and they couldn't take it anymore, and they couldn't let me drag them down. And it was the hardest thing my parents have ever had to do. It was the only thing that finally made it worth it to me to break down, to be honest, and to give up the fight and finally give in and let someone help me.
If I may, it sounds like you can sometimes help best by stepping aside, because it's not a problem that you can throw money at, and people think maybe you can because you can pay for rehab. You can throw money at rehab, you can get them medical treatment and stuff, but I think from talking to people like yourself and others, what I've really gleaned is that this is not a problem. This is not putting new tires on your car when you get a flat. This is not
something you can pay away.
A new roof. Yeah, you can't just say, well, I've got savings, let's just throw some money at it and fix the roof or put on new tires or whatever. This is you can't give them money to help them out, and you can't give them a job to help them out. You almost have to.
They just have to want it.
Yeah.
They have to find a way to finally want it. And that was it for me. And you guys know me. I love my family more than anything in the world. And so the thought of...
That's something we have in common, because I love your family as well. Your dad, your mom. Yeah.
Hey now.
Say what's up to your sister for me, too. I love your family.
You gotta be careful.
All at the same time.
These mics are heavy. But
Lord.
so the big takeaway there is a lot of times a lot of people who are trying to help somebody in the throes of addiction are really just enabling them to keep going. And when that, be it a family member, be it a friend, whoever it is who is actively struggling, when they come to you and they ask you for that $20 or the ride downtown so they can see their friend or whatever it may be, if you give in, if you're helping them use, you're helping them die.
I just imagine driving a buddy downtown, like, I got to go see my friend. Give me a ride. Okay, I'll give you a ride. We'll go see your buddy. And I'll be like, huh? I didn't know you had any Jamaican friends. That dude has dreadlocks. You buddies with that guy? Where'd you meet that guy? You meet that guy at college?
Where'd you meet Flacco?
Yeah, that guy has a face tattoo. That's weird. That's odd. Why is he pointing a gun at me? Oh, fuck. All right, he took my wallet. Okay. Now he's pulling my pants down. Oh, shit. Now it's in my butt.
Where'd you say you know him from? Church?
Where'd you meet this guy? You met this guy at church? You met this guy at
You met in Boy Scouts?
I was just about to say Boy Scouts.
Well, the pants pulling down, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was an altar boy? That's where he learned that move? Oh, God. So how old were you when you first used drugs for the first time? Maybe, or even like drank inappropriately. I'll throw that out there too, because a lot of times people start with booze.
You know, it's actually funny. I was, I think, a junior in high school.
Okay.
So not super early, not anything like that. I had a great childhood growing up. I have a loving family, super supportive. I was in honors classes, got into some great schools.
Yeah, because you're a smart ass. I almost said you're a smart ass, dude, but you're not. You are kind of a smart ass as well, but you're really
a smart ass.
You're a really intelligent dude. Mm-hmm. You're a very smart dude. Mm-hmm. So the honors classes,
Say it one more time for me.
You're a very smart dude, buddy. Aww. And you're a smart ass.
Well, it affects everyone. This disease does not discriminate. Mm-hmm. That's one of the big things that, just because someone has money or has a good childhood or something, just because they're not from the projects, from the ghetto or the wrong side of the tracks, it can be anybody. It's a mental disorder.
So you're saying it's not just poor brown people. This affects white people too?
White people too.
Oh, that's insane. Okay, I better look out. Sorry, Joanne. So the first experience was you said you were a junior, 16, 17, something like that. It sounds like.
Yeah, something like that. 16 years old, high school teenager. Party, and
someone was passing around the black tar heroin, or
it was crystal meth actually. No,
okay. Understand.
No, smoke.
Breaking Bad was popular back then, and.
No, come on, not yet. I'm older than that, asshole.
I was trying to give you credit. Hey, man, I'm sensitive about my age. I don't like being old.
No, I literally, smoked a little weed and had a couple beers. May have had a shot of something like that. But
typical teenage shit. I mean, that sounds very typical. I imagine that there are so many millions of teenagers out there that have that experience when they're 16, 17. You go to a party, you drink a couple of the old man's beers, you pass around a joint maybe. I feel like I did that dozens of times when I was a teenager. Christina?
Yeah, I did it a lot.
You did a bunch? Yeah. So why then does it hit Scotty? I mean, why is he drew the short straw? I mean, was that...
Right, there you go. That's just the thing, it's just a peculiar mental twist. It's literally a line right out of the big book. Peculiar mental twist. And that's all it is.
I think it's like a interaction with environment and genes. Sometimes I go back to that, like where...
Epigenetics.
Yeah, where your environment triggered that like genetic expression. And then whatever else
That's
happens.
The obesity genetics as well. There are a lot of genetics connected to the current like clinical obesity in that it's not just one single one. And having those certain genes doesn't mean that you will become obese, but
puts you at a higher risk.
It puts you at a higher risk, and there are external epigenetic factors that will turn those switches on kind of.
Exactly. So like if somebody with these genes, so if you have somebody with the gene, without a gene, if they're in the same environment, that person with the gene will be at a much higher risk and they could do the same exact thing, but they'll respond differently. So same.
Well, let me ask you, Christina, and Scotty as well. I want to ask you, because there are physiological, there's actually genetic connection. Yeah, there are things that you can...
Finding correlation, at least.
Yeah, that you can go to and you can say, well, there are genes that affect obesity. There are genes that possibly affect addiction as well. Do you feel like that opens the door? Is there a possibility down the line that maybe there will be treatments for these things that will affect, DNA transcription or protein synthesis or anything like that will then you can almost take as a prophylactic. Like you've got to
vaccination. Yeah,
they do the breast cancer testing, and a lot of women have undergone double mastectomy because they do have the breast cancer gene and they want to nip it in the bud.
Right, take away that opportunity, take away the possibility for it. Hey, if it turns out to work, that would be incredible. Absolutely. I think, it also plays on One of the other things to bear in mind, though, too, is I think that there's also levels to this thing. You know, if you have someone who is not predisposed to be an addict and you give them heroin every day for a year, chances are you've got a heroin addict by the end of that year.
You'll make an addict out of the people. And then that's kind of the nature of some of these drugs. I mean, some are probably worse than others. Like we're going to have kids, and chances are pretty good our kids are going to drink a beer, our kids are going to smoke a little pot. But I would much rather have the kids smoke pot and try pot out than heroin or cocaine or something, crack, meth. I mean, something that's incredibly addictive. It seems like your chances are a little bit better on the weed.
A little bit.
And I was going to say that genes, to me, are just one piece. And like addiction or a lot of these things, it's not single, like factorial. There's multiple things going on. Genes are just one picture, like obesity. Yeah. Same thing. Genes might play a role, but you can't ever just narrow it down to one thing.
Right. Yeah, if you have the genes for obesity, but you stay in a caloric deficit all the time, you're not going to be obese.
And you're a marathon runner.
Right.
It's the epigenetic factors that we mentioned. I mean, that there's probably some sort of physiological tie at a very base nucleobase level that also is affected by behaviors. I mean, it's not like there were heroin addicts 1,000 years ago, right? I mean, if the drug didn't exist,
I don't think it exists. Yeah.
I mean, or at least it didn't exist in all of the whole world. I mean, if you were living in North America, there's a reason why the Native Americans had such a hard time with alcohol.
Well,
they didn't drink a bunch of booze until
shit coming out all the time too. They got the bath salts, and then they got all this stuff is just being created and mass produced to create these problems. And
bath salts sound like a great way to get so fucked up that you mutilate your own genitals. Fuck that. Fuck that. You're talking about people doing this shit and like
eating faces and
they think their dick is a zombie, so they close it in a panini press, and they're like, I'm not even, this shit's crazy. Put a fish hook through their dick.
How does that not sound like a good time to you?
Well, I mean, the fish hook through the dick does sound pretty nice, because then,
nice piercing.
One of the things that brings up, though, it's not like the drugs are going anywhere. So what we're talking about with the environmental impact on people, you have the genes, of course, like Chrissy's saying, that's one piece, but you have all these other pieces, and that's another thing to keep in mind. You need to change these pieces in your life. Don't think that because you go to detox that you can come out and go hang out with the same friends at the same crack house and you're going to be just fine.
Absolutely
Same
not.
Goes for
you got to change your environment.
If you're overeating and you're a binge eater and you go to a 12-step program, don't go to the pastry shop and hang out all day because you're friends with the girl who works there. Separate yourself from the environmental factors.
Don't go to McDonald's and try to eat a fucking salad, because their fucking salads suck. McDonald's salads fucking blow. You're going to get a double quarter pounder. They got the fresh, never frozen meat now. You're going to get that fucking double quarter pounder. You're going to get it cheese. You're going to get the extra large fries.
Diet Coke.
Yeah. Hey, I am that asshole. Yeah. I go to Burger King.
Same here.
I go to McDonald's, and I got the fucking cheeseburgers. I got the fucking chicken nuggets. I got fucking sauce on everything, fries, everything, and I'm drinking Diet Coke. You know why? It is a superior beverage. Fuck anybody that disagrees. Come on this show. I'll fucking fight you, motherfucker. Diet Coke is the best.
The nectar of the gods.
Diet Coke is the fucking best. I'm addicted to Diet Coke. Speaking of addiction, I'm addicted to Diet Coke, and I don't give a fuck. I will take that shit to my grave. People are like, oh, you shouldn't be drinking. Like, fuck you. First of all, you got no right to tell me what I should and should not be drinking, because this doesn't impair me to drive. It's Diet Coke. I'm not going to kill a school bus full of kids because I had one too many Diet Coke and then got behind the wheel. So first of all, fuck you. Second of all, it's not smoke. You don't have to walk through a cloud of my Diet Coke that I'm blowing out into the air. I'm not setting a bad example for your child. You have no right to tell me I shouldn't be drinking Diet Coke because it's not good for you. And fourthly, or fifthly, that might be my fifth point. Fifthly, I don't give a fuck.
Does throw off counting.
I don't give a fuck if it takes 10 years off my life. I fucking love the shit. It's worth it. It's worth it. The same cannot be said about drugs. don't approve of drugs.
I was hoping you were going to put in a little disclaimer right at the end there.
Yeah, I have to say,
Reel it back.
I don't want anyone out there using that logic thinking, well, okay, now this guy doesn't mind if Diet Coke cuts his lifespan, so I don't mind if crack cocaine cuts my lifespan. That is not a good logical jump, because the Diet Coke, I'm still functioning. I haven't lost my job. I've only sucked dick for Diet Coke like 3, maybe 4 times. So I don't suck that much dick for Diet Coke, but I feel like with the crack, you're gonna wind up losing your job and sucking some dick. So they're not the same people. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Hashtag bath salts are worth it.
Hashtag I love bath salts.
Man.
One thing I do want to ask is decriminalization of drugs. How do you feel about that? A lot of states are going the decriminalization and even legalization of recreational marijuana use. How do you feel about not specifically just marijuana, but all of the drugs maybe being decriminalized with a focus more on helping the person medically versus locking the person up, at least for the user?
Awesome question overall. I think that drugs should be decriminalized. I think that there should be more focus on recovery programs, treating the addict, trying to help the issue. The issue is not like people are not being helped when they get put in jail for petty drug crime. They're being turned into criminals. They're being turned into convicts.
Yeah.
You know, the
Awful.
kid who decides to try coke at a party and gets arrested, and because he has that class of drug, he goes to jail. He was going to graduate and go to college and have a great life until he went to jail and learned all about cooking crack cocaine, and then came out and turned into a street dealer, and then his life went down the drain further and ended up shot and killed.
Well, if he's a felon, then it becomes even harder for him to
get a job.
Yeah,
so what's he going to do for money? Exactly.
I mean, he can serve me my fucking salad at McDonald's, but he doesn't. He doesn't want to do that.
He's going to make more money serving you crack.
Indeed, he's going to be rolling in dough when he's giving me bath salts. Help me get the fish hook out of my dick.
There's enough on him, bro. But no, so yeah, that's my. You can't be locking people up for these things. You need to be treating the problem, not creating a further one. You're creating more problems by creating more criminals.
How do you feel then about there have been a few initiatives in maybe more recent years in places like New York whereby the governments there, the local municipalities are attempting to maybe curb some of the consumption of unhealthy foods, specifically sodas, by increasing the taxation on those items, or even making it illegal to purchase a certain size or a certain quantity of this known entity that is known to be not the greatest and most nutrition food. Do you think that people should maybe not be allowed to buy a certain amount of soda if it's too much, or should the government step in and be able to regulate how frequently I eat McDonald's, or how much soda you buy, or anything like that? I mean, is that the government's place?
That's such a toss-up.
Tough question.
Part of me wants to say survival of the fittest. If you're out there and you're stupid enough to drink a 12-pack of full sugar soda every day and give yourself diabetes and die, goodbye. And let the rest of us who are actually, doing our part to put the right foods in our body and try to stay healthy and feed our kids right.
Ebenezer Scrooge would have said, decrease the surplus population. I think that was Ebenezer Scrooge's words. He's like, you fuck right off, guys. I don't give a fuck. Go have your heart attack. Fuck right off.
Trim the fat off.
But if you do follow that approach, then does the person's poor health then become a drain on a system that we must all use?
Precisely.
Insurance and then public funds. I mean, do I have a right to tell someone you can't be fat because your fatness affects me?
And then bring it back to the kids again, like we were talking about. A lot of people who just don't have the information, they don't have the knowledge. They could figure it out for themselves. They could learn these things, but if they don't and they won't, they are poisoning their kids. So can we help those kids by limiting what we can sell them?
Should DFACs get involved? I'm going to take your kids away because your kids are obese? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's actually a little terrifying. The thought that
now there's a good question.
They're going to come take your kids because you're providing this is an unsafe environment for your children. You're ruining your children's health because you're letting them drink soda every day. You're putting Oreos in their lunchbox every day. I mean, could I get my kids taken?
You know
from
what?
me
Fuck
if
it. I say yes. I say yes.
Yeah.
If you are doing that to your child, you are.
What if I'm not doing it
abusing-
willfully, though? I mean, I think with abuse, I mean, if I'm actually taking a belt to my children, that's a much more willful behavior. If I'm putting a cigarette out on my kid's forehead or whatever, on his arm or something, I mean, that is like a very willful behavior. You need to take that kid away from me. But
Are you saying it's not a willful behavior to feed your kid McDonald's instead of a salad? Or
Well, as I said earlier, I don't think you mentioned the education several times. I think that maybe people don't understand that when you put a cigarette out on someone, you understand that that is causing them harm. It's causing them physical pain. It's causing them emotional trauma. But when you give the kid a fourth Oreo, are you thinking I'm doing this to cause harm? I mean, if I ball up my fist and punch my wife, that's a deliberate attack. That's an assault. But if I cook my wife a lot of buttery food, that's not my attempts to like disrupt
You're doing
her
it out
orbital
of
socket.
love, though, because you think it's good and tasty, and
Tasty,
you think
it's
it's going
delicious,
to make me
and I
happy.
want you to enjoy I want you to be happy.
So
I want you to
I
enjoy
feel
my
like,
meals.
so I think that a lot of parents or a lot of people in general, I don't think it's due to a deficit of knowledge. I think we're in an information.
Yeah, everyone
So
knows
everybody
cigarettes are bad for you. They smoke
But
anyway.
everybody has information at their fingertips,
The
so they
information's
know
there. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
know that going to McDonald's 4 or 5 times a week is not good.
Claiming
but I
ignorance
think
is
it's
not.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to what we're talking about with addiction and stuff, and that people have these ingrained behaviors and habits, and that's what they do. That's how they eat. And changing eating habits, it seems simple. It seems logical that, hey, this is high in fat, I shouldn't eat it, but it's never that easy. Like, I work with a lot of patients, and it's never that easy. There's so much tied up into
of course. Yeah, to bring it back
habits and behavior.
To bring it back to Scotty's experience with addiction,
It's all about behavior. I think that's where it's
I'm
at.
certain that there were times along your road while you were in the throes of addiction that you thought, wouldn't it be great if I could stop doing this? I wish I could put this down.
Right.
But you just hadn't had that moment, that rock bottom, that whatever. I mean, I think there are a lot of people out there who suffer, who think, I really wish I didn't have to do this drug, or that I weren't doing this drug, or that I weren't drinking. And
Oh, yeah.
yet they don't stop yet. And hopefully they do stop at some point, but they don't stop yet. But it's almost a self-loathing, like I'm a bad person because I keep doing this. And do you think that maybe, as you mentioned, Christina, it's behavior? I completely agree. We're in an information age. The info's out there. You know cigarettes are bad. You smoke them anyway. You know what you're doing.
McDonald's isn't healthy.
You know that French fries are not great to be eating.
I don't think you can compare though that instance. You know, if you have somebody who is a binge eater and when they eat some ice cream, they go and they binge with it, that is an abnormal reaction type of situation. But when you're talking about the mother or father who goes to the store and fills the basket with ice cream, Little Debbie's, and Wonder Bread, they are making decisions right there, not an addiction fueled decision, but they are poisoning their children. So to me, what we're talking about is more the difference of murder versus manslaughter here. Are they premeditated to hurt their child, or are they hurting their child?
It's a very indirect hurt. I mean, it's not
Indirectly, but the information's out there. I think parents need to be just held responsible.
Yeah, so like the owner of a dog that gets out and bites someone, that owner is held responsible. They're liable for that dog, and if that dog gets out and causes harm and bites a child and mauls a child, then that owner is held. The dog's probably put down, but you can't try the dog, you can't fine the dog, you can't lock the dog up. You're going to euthanize the dog, but then the owner must be accountable for allowing this dog out into someone else's yard to maul the kid. So you're saying sort of something similar.
Even better example, that owner, if they have the dog and they lock it in the basement, never give it sunlight, never give it the right food, and that dog is found to be mistreated, and that person is put in jail for animal cruelty, which they should, and they should goddamn burn in hell. That is the type of parent that I think that parents who are feeding their kid ice cream, Wonder Bread, Twinkies, on a regular basis, let them have a treat. They're kids. But do not poison your child. Do not mistreat and malnourish your child. Learn how to give your child the best life, the best health possible. That's your kid.
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway message, is to tell parents, like, look, you got to feed this youngster. Do I think the government should step in? Probably not. I mean, if you lock your kids up in the basement, or if you lock your dog up in the basement, they never see sunlight, and you put cigarettes out on them, yeah, you should go to jail. And not only do they deserve to die, but I hope they burn in hell. Right, Christina?
Yeah. But that kind of brings up one more point before we move off, is I think it's expecting the parents. I think the parents themselves need to get the help, because I don't think they know how to, like, I'm not making excuses, but it's like they need to change, and they might not be ready to. They might have their own eating issues. They have their own stuff. And unfortunately, then it gets carried on to the kids, you know? So It's like expecting them to stop and change. Bam, because I have a kid. Some might. I think some might. Or then you start seeing where they're feeding their kid this way, but they're eating this way. But so I think they need to you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that you're nailing it there too, is that the education on these things, if it could be more readily available, you know, but then it's still on the parents. They need to step up and they need to educate themselves, but if we had it more readily available for them too. So you guys know my full-time job. I manage the vitamin shop in Everett, Mass. 23 Missing View Road in Everett.
Go visit Scotty. Buy some good protein. He'll sell you the good shit. Dr. Hyde will rail some out. If you're trying to get clean, you know, off that blow, go rail some Hyde, man. It's pretty close.
Come slam some pre-workout instead.
Yeah.
Well, but I deal with people coming on a daily basis who they have no idea what it is that they're really looking for or what they need. And that's not a dig at any customer. It's that there's so much information. They have there's no reason for them to know these things.
I go with whatever Dr. Oz says. So I watch the Dr. Oz show. I go to his website, and whatever Dr. Oz says buy, man, I rush out and buy.
It's fucking painful.
I love me some Dr. Oz.
Give me like 10 kilos of Garcinia cambogia.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Dr. Oz, man, that guy's, he's got it. No, listen, he knows Oprah. He's got to know his shit. If Oprah put
He's got
Dr.
doctor
Oz
right
up,
in his name.
Yeah, doctor is in the name. I'm pretty sure it's on his birth
My
certificate.
primary care is Dr. Phil. When he's not around, Dr. Oz got me.
Yeah, I feel like I go to Dr. Phil maybe more for the therapy, the psychotherapy, but then if I need medicine, I'm going to Dr. Oz for like what drugs should I take,
So
doctor?
I'm kidding. You're the only person I let play doctor with me.
Yeah, let's get on that. So,
but I think we're starting to talk about environment, and I think our culture. I think like the U.S. has been labeled a toxic culture, and I think that's a big. I kind of stand behind that, because our culture makes it very difficult to be able to change from a less healthy to a more healthy. There's a lot of triggers for people. You know, fast food joints everywhere. You know,
Dunkin' Donuts every corner.
Yeah, TV ads,
England, right?
etc.
Extra caramel, extra sugar, and everything.
Fucking New England. I drive past.
You're nailing it. Yeah.
I drive past 37 Dunkin' Donuts on my
It's
way to work
crazy.
every fucking day. Fuck Dunkin'. They suck anyway.
You can get pizzas delivered, but where can I get a nice healthy salad delivered? Or
Panera just started delivering.
did they?
Some locations. But you are right. You know, we don't have the ease.
You're gonna incentivize.
Absolutely. You know, have it has to be there. It has to be easily accessible. It has to be in people's faces a little bit more. And I think that if more people can make a real effort to push for health throughout their lives, I think everyone will benefit.
I will dissent very slightly there. I will say that I think there is something about doing the right thing in general that is difficult. I think it's by nature doing the right thing is always going to be the more difficult, the more effort, because doing the easy thing is what a lot of folks do. Convenience is appealing to us. That's why we order pizza. Convenience in the fast food drive-through, that type of thing. And so it appeals to people because it is easy. It also appeals to people because they enjoy the flavor and the taste of the food, and they've built those habits up, and they receive that neurophysiological response of the food. But I think also that when you make something easy, it turns into fast food. When you make something convenient, it becomes processed.
I think that balance is really the key to all of this, because I know that there are a lot of people out there who might be hearing this, and they're going to stop you right there and be like, I just can't do it. I just can't. And they shut it down so quickly. Those of us who meal prep, who eat healthy on a daily basis, we know that everyone can. realistically, anyone listening right now who says you can't do it, you can. It's just not important enough to you. Until it becomes important enough to you to prepare your meals and to really go with the top quality or the best option for you, for your children, for whatever it is, you need to find balance to make better decisions when you're out and around. Make better decisions at the grocery store, and then work those better decisions toward the best decisions as you go.
Yeah, I would agree. Christina, you were going to say something.
I know. I was just going to mention on habits. I think what can make it difficult is once we habituate to something, then it requires less mental energy. So it's less taxing to do it.
Absolutely.
And so it's the easier behavior to do. And then when you try to implement a new behavior that requires a lot of mental energy, it's more taxing. So it takes. I feel like it takes a lot of, it almost requires that more willpower when you start, because it's not easy.
It's
not
more
like
daunting at that point too.
You don't have that muscle memory yet, but it'll get there after repeat.
I think the research on tobacco cessation is an average of 7 attempts before you finally quit. And I think that we do notice clinically the same things with people trying to stop addiction or to get clean, so to speak. And so that's the thing that I really try to emphasize when I'm working with somebody, is that it is very, very important to realize that you're going to fail. That needs to be baked into your expectations. But each time you fail, get back to it. Don't use that as a reason to quit. Get right back to the healthy eating. Minimize the damage, so to speak.
I caution people with those type of statements, because so if I tell someone, listen, you're gonna fail a few times with this diet, they're gonna fail a few times with that diet. So I say fuck that. I say go into something knowing that you can do it without failure. You can, like we said, make better choices and work toward perfect, work toward best. So just because it's a better choice, it's not the best choice, that's not a failure.
Yeah.
But I see people all the time who, because they have that out, like we have a society of pussies who are ready to quit at any moment. So if you tell them, listen, this is a hard diet, you're going to fail, but we'll keep on getting back on the horse, they will,
Yeah, I guess I do see your point in that you don't want to license someone to fuck around on either their medical nutrition therapy or their pre-contest diet. But I guess what I mean is that I don't want someone to...
Don't let that failure hold them down.
Yeah, don't get right back to it. Have a mentality of like, you know what? It's okay to write a rough draft. It's okay to strike out. I mean, every baseball player, even the greatest, they do strike out, but they come back and they make more attempts and they make extra efforts. And if you learn something, I mean, I almost think failure in some regards is good, because it does give you an opportunity to think, what can I do better? How can I improve? And you get something from that, as long as you take the lesson from that.
Use that opportunity for growth.
Precisely.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
like I always talk to people too, like there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. Like you can have a momentary lapse, but it doesn't have to turn into a full-blown relapse if you stay off track. And
we should maybe clarify that you're speaking about not drugs, but you're speaking specifically about nutrition.
I was speaking about nutrition.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess it goes for any behavior you're trying to change. Like if you're trying to quit smoking and you have a cigarette, well, don't go full back to smoking. Or if you are trying, drink and you have a drink, well, don't keep drinking, intervene, figure out.
Get your ass to a meeting.
I was going to draw that correlation right there, because so many people fall into that trap. And now I'm jumping it over to the drug side again, or with alcoholism, addiction. But you can say the same thing for a diet, for any of the stuff that we're talking about here, or for food addiction or binging. If you do have a slip, if you do if you do make the decision to cheat on your recovery, on your diet, on whatever it is you're trying to abstain from, don't use that as an excuse to then jump off the wagon.
Exactly.
Because you see too many people do that, and then especially, and it's just because it's such a serious topic that I have to always lay these down, especially when it comes to recovery, the way things are out there today, you might not have that second chance. So don't give up. If you're out there, you're struggling, do not give up. Do not go out there thinking you can do one more. You can't. You can't. If you make it, God bless you, but get the fuck back in and never go out again.
And I think the way you reworded that, I think you said it first if you accidentally, and then you reword it and you said if you make the decision to. I think
It's a
that
conscious decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's well
Don't give
said.
people excuses. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking at the statistics and saying failure is likely when you're trying to quit smoking, but it's worth quitting. It's worth improving your nutritional habits. It's worth quitting drugs because Scotty is, I have a hard time imagining him in his throes of addiction because he's just such a joy now, and he's just such a good friend and badass dude. I mean, it's just he just seems like he's in such a good place that it's odd to think of that. And it is inspiring. But it does tell me that it's worth it. It's worth it to really work past anything that you're struggling with, be it food or crack. I mean, anything. It really is worth getting past that.
That's so true. And life is just amazing.
Indeed.
Incredible on the other side of it all, you know. And I talk about this with my client, Casey, who I had mentioned before, and other people as well, who I'll, leave anonymous at this point. But we look back at some of those times at where we came from and then what recovery has done in my life. I shouldn't be alive right now, first off. So I'm already blessed just by my heart beating every day. But what my life is today, the people I have in it, the way that I live, the joy, the absolute just serenity in my life. I have a girlfriend who I love. I have my family who loves me, who I love right back. Friends who are closer than I've ever had. Life is amazing, and I almost lost it all.
Yeah, the idea that maybe you would not have been able to experience these last several years that have been so much better and more rewarding and just
the best
good.
years of my life.
Yeah.
The best years of my life.
Yeah, shit does get better.
And so don't throw that away for anyone out there again. Don't throw away your life, those years. There's so much good to have,
Yeah. So I say something similar, like you said, life is beautiful. I have a similar saying. It's not quite, I didn't word it quite as well, but what I like to say is that it feels so good when the cum comes out. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that. Like, stick around, look.
There we go.
It feels so good when the cum comes out.
You got to live for something.
Anyway, this has been actually kind of a little bit more of a serious episode. We haven't had a wicked serious episode in a few weeks. We've had a lot of fun, funny episodes, but this has been good to have. And I don't want to be too flippant with such a topic. I've tried to be a little humorous, but it's also a topic that I do take very seriously. So
I think it's a great topic to talk about, and it's been amazing, talking about this with you guys. And life is funny and beautiful and awesome now. That's what we're talking about. And we're having fun, and we are joking around. We can be a little flippant with it because
no one's come yet.
No, not quite yet. Getting there.
Saving it for the climax.
I think it's great. I think it's good to talk about these kind of things, and it's something we're all passionate about. So I think it's nice to interweave these.
Clearly. And Jen hasn't shut up. Jeez.
Say hi, Jen.
Okay. She's like, fuck no.
We'll edit that.
Is there anything that you would like to mention that you haven't mentioned? I will have you and Mike on the show again as soon as you guys want to come back on. So I feel like there is more that we could say about bodybuilding, especially the bodybuilding lifestyle, its implications on clinical health metrics and such. How can people contact you if they want to get in touch with you, whether or not they want to talk addiction? Maybe they need to talk to you, but maybe they want to talk to you about competition, getting your assistance with their contest prep or their improvement season. How could people get in touch with you?
I appreciate it. So that's actually great that you brought that up. We didn't get to talk too much on some of that. So again, my name is Scott McIlharney, or Scotty Mac, as most in the industry know me. I'm one of the coaches on Team Shula. Mike Shula is the other head coach with myself. We also have a couple other coaches who are working with us now. If you want to contact me directly, My email is scottymac710@gmail.com. It's SCOTTYMAC710. My Instagram is at ScottyMac710, so same thing there. You can contact me on either of those. We can get in touch, and be it myself, Mike, or any of the other coaches that we want to work with, or if you want to talk recovery, if you have any questions about what we've talked about today, if you have any comments at all, I'd love to hear from anybody.
Yeah, and their athletes at Team Shula are alien robots. I mean, these people are not human. They look
Robot
incredible.
aliens.
Robot aliens. I'm sorry, I fucked that up.
All good.
They're robot aliens, which is an important distinction to make because alien and robots is not the same.
That's bullshit.
That's some fucking bullshit. I don't even know what I was smoking. They're robot aliens.
There we go.
Robot aliens? They're robot aliens. What I do mean to say is that they look incredible. These athletes really do place very well. They kick ass, and they have a lot of fun. I've hung out with Team Shula on several occasions. It is a great environment. It is a great atmosphere as an athlete. The family style of interaction, of group hangouts, group posing, I really benefited from it myself. I love the team. They're really, really great people. So if you want to get involved, not just for the sake of bodybuilding, but just for the sake of kind of having this extended family, they are the best you could possibly choose in that regard.
Thank you for that, Jay.
Anything else that you want to tell people? I'm going to plug a few things, but anything that you would like to, any parting words that you'd like to say, my man, now is the time.
You know, I think that we covered really most of what we were going to go over today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Jason, for having me on. It's really been a pleasure. It's been a blast.
For shizzle. And if you got anything out of this episode, by all means, tell your friends. Turn people on to the show. We do appreciate everybody listening. I want to give a few plugs. Our homeboy Nolan Gregg, his band You're Fired, they've been on the show a few weeks ago. They've got some live shows coming up I want to plug for anybody in the Boston area. They're playing June 15th at Sonia. That's in Cambridge, Mass. They're also playing May 18th. That's this Friday, motherfuckers. But they're playing in at Bungalow in Manchester, New Hampshire. So if you're in the Manchester area and you want to go see a live show, if you want to see me and Christina live, getting a little bit tipsy, we will be there. Trying to prove that we're not addicts, although that we may fail in trying to convince you of that. But I also want to plug my podcast NH brothers. These are my podcasting brothers and sisters from other misters, because there's some ladies on the network as well with the MU Diary. We added a few new shows, so feel free to go check out the podcast NH website. We got new shows, C&G Pro Wrestling Podcast. We've also got a podcast called Unqualified Networks Podcast. These motherfuckers have done 350 episodes. They've been podcasting since 2011, I know. So these are like, make me feel like a youngster, right? I don't know what I'm doing, but we need to ask them for some tips. So go check out C&G Pro Wrestling Podcast, Unqualified Networks Podcast. Go check out podcastnh.com for some cool New Hampshire-based podcasts if you want to support your local podcast. Not that really matters. I mean, we're worldwide, motherfuckers. Also check out our homeboys We Needed to Talk. They're on Twitter at WNTT1. Hit up our homeboys We Need to Talk. And baby, what you got?
Nothing. I think you said it very well.
Thank you. I am known for being very eloquent. All right, thanks, motherfuckers, for listening. We'll check you later.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Peace out, motherfuckers.
Feeling like $100. No, I'm a young and broad. My millies 100, so I'm feeling no sort of deluxe. I ain't antisocial, I just think you suck, and I ain't gonna let you bring me down when I'm feeling up. So what in luck? Ladies, I'm your man, but no, I ain't gonna stick around, cause baby, I got bigger plans. But I'm down.